Hey Raindrops, the queen and king of reality show tour is back. Nene Leaks and I are coming to a city near you. Wednesday, May 13th, we are in Birmingham, Alabama. Thursday, May 14th, we're in Tampa, Florida. Friday, June 5th, Houston, Texas. Saturday, June 6th, Dallas, Texas. Get your tickets on sale now at kingdomrainint.com. That's Kingdom, KINGDOM, Reign, REIGNENT.com. Can't wait to see you there. Hey, Raindrops. On today's episode of Reality Crime Stories, look, I'm not going to say this is a crime, but a lot of people are saying it's a crime against humanity because we are going to discuss the latest update in the messy divorce proceedings of Real Housewives of Atlanta star Drew Sidora and her estranged husband, Ralph Pittman. So, to update Raindrops, Courtney Parker, Judge Tyranny, and I are going to discuss this particular situation. As you know, Tyranny is going to give us the law. Courtney is going to give us the mess, and I'm going to give.
Giving the mess.
Courtney's here to give the mess, child. Tyranny's here to give the law, and I'm here just to state the facts. Okay, so let me start with my job, Courtney. Okay, facts and nothing but. All
Roles
right.
have changed. How our roles have changed.
Right. In this particular case, right? So, as I
Yes.
was saying, Drew Sidora was ordered to vacate the Georgia home she shares with her estranged husband, Ralph Pittman. Drew has to be out of the house by May 31st. The judge said that due to the current financial circumstances of the parties, until Drew leaves the home, they will continue splitting the expenses. But this is where things get a little dicey, and I want to start here as there's more development, because we're going to talk about the how much money Drew is saying she makes against Ralph, in addition to how Drew wants Ralph thrown in jail due to leaked text messages. So stay tuned for that. But first thing first, the bomb drop, which is why people are calling this a crime against humanity, is the fact that Drew and Ralph will share joint legal custody of their kids, but Ralph was awarded primary physical custody of the kids during the school year, and Drew will have parenting time on alternating weekends starting in August. Now, Courtney, you a mama and a mama bear.
Yeah.
Okay. I was telling Tyranny before we started that as a viewer, right, it's
Yeah.
rare for us to keep reading these stories of mothers losing primary physical custody of the kids, not just custody, but
Right.
primary physical
Physical.
custody. So before we get down to the law and nothing but the law, um, Courtney, are you shocked by this?
I am in the sense of, and Tierney and I have talked about this off camera before, because she was like, when I was going through my legal battles with my daughter, I made sure to get both legal and physical, I full legal and physical custody. And but again, I live in LA, I live in California. And it is what we're seeing more of, and what we're seeing in this case, is more fathers are now stepping up and getting rid of the stigmas of it's mama's baby. Do you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Was
Mm-hmm.
I shocked? No, because this is kind of the repercussions, and I don't know. This is a situation where I don't know either party. I am just a fan like you, watching it happen, not in real time, in TV time, in TV real time, like everybody else. But when you have someone that is a personality on a reality show, such as Drew, and all your tea is spilled, moment by moment by moment, frame by frame by frame, no, I'm not surprised because the men who are not cast members on this show, or most of them, who want to be out of the public's eye have, to me, a strong defense in saying, I don't want my kids subject to your lifestyle. I don't want them in, the public, as well as I don't want our dirty laundry being aired out week per week per week because you want to be this personality. So
Mm-hmm.
in Drew's case, I would say, no, I'm not surprised. And I gotta be honest, I'm glad that more men, it could never be me, but I'm glad that more men are getting their moments and showing up and being equal parents. And the law is respecting that.
So that's a perfect segue for you, Tyranny. They are residing in the state of Georgia.
Mhm.
Um, Based on this judgment, the judge said that, look, Drew is able to be with the kids starting in August, but during the school year, it needs to be Ralph. And the reason why it needs to be Ralph is the fact that they were saying that when the kids were in the hands of Drew Sidora,
Mhm.
that they missed,
Substantial.
yeah, a substantial amount of time out of school, which is why he has them physically doing the school year. And I want to say that the number that was mentioned was something along the lines of 20 days of school.
Right.
So, Tyranny, like all of that in terms of Georgia law, family law, is this something that happens where a judge says, based on school year, yeah, buddy, he gets primary physical custody during the school year?
Yeah, because he's a
Well,
single
hey
parent. Right.
y'all. Hey
Hey.
raindrops. Y'all know before I say anything, I have to give y'all my infamous disclaimer. I do not speak on open cases. I do not give legal advice. And I honestly do not know the facts of anything that is going on. I can explain Georgia law. And the first thing that I will say, and I have said on this show several times, I think that the way you opened up was really interesting because you said from the viewer standpoint.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, from the court standpoint, the standard is always the same. What is in the best interest of the child? It is
Right.
never about a gender, a man, a woman, what who and what situation is in the best interest of the child. That is always what is going to be the standard that the court follows and leans on. And so again, you I guess maybe because you're seeing people get more attention in the media or on social media and people are becoming aware of it, but fathers have been awarded custody for as long as we've been having children.
Right.
Again, the public may be becoming more aware of it, but it always has been the standard is what is in the best interest of the children.
Here's what I find really interesting, though, because we talked about stigmas, and every time we hear a father getting, getting granted full custody, getting awarded child support, it always the stigma of men, and particularly black men, not taking care of their kids or being present in their kids' lives
That
is
that is a bad stigma.
it's a bad stigma.
Statistically, black men show up for their children more than any other
Any
race. It
other
is
race,
proven
right?
statistically.
Right. But like I said, we're dealing in terms of stigmas. Is it also could it also be a negative stigma when we hear that fathers are awarded their children, they're awarded custody of their children and even care for their kids, that the mom has to subsequently be a bad mom to lose custody of her kids. I feel like that's something else that we need to address because everybody is like in the comments, how could you what kind of mother are you to lose custody of your kids? So, as the same way we look at and we're up in arms about the negative stigmas for fathers who gain custody of their children, let's at least think about it from the perspective of, and I like how you're saying just legally what's in the best interest of the child, how moms sometimes get painted as bad moms when they lose custody.
Yeah, I think that we also, again, we talk about this. I say this, I feel like I'm always repeating myself, but I think that I have to because people truly do not understand how the legal system works.
Right.
They go on the headlines. So they hear something salacious, they pick up on one fact, and they are now using that, coming up with presumptions that just generally would never fly in court. In court, the court is going to evaluate all of the facts and circumstances of the case. So they're not going to look at one just fact. It's not just going to be, okay, so who should have the child in the summer or who signs up for more summer activities. They're going to look across the board. That's going to be physical custody. That is going to be emotional welfare. That is going to be financial welfare. So again, we are looking to put the children in an environment is that is most stable for them. We are not thinking about the mother or father. We are thinking about the parents. And again, a lot of times in the public, you simply do not have enough facts to know what has been going on because the courts also are very, very hesitant about changing something that is already in place.
Got
So
it.
this may not be anything new to the family or to the children, but if it comes publicly, now you're shocked. But this is what the children are accustomed to, and the courts generally try not to disrupt their lives as much as possible.
So could that be, because you're not Carlos, let me ask you this question. Will.
What?
Because Carlos is not the messy one today, he's the factual one today.
So since I'm the messy one, could that be the reason why she has to leave the marital home and he gets to stay and she's getting kicked out of the house? Because that she's getting kicked out of the house.
Yes.
She wants him thrown in jail. I've got to find out why.
No, I can tell you why.
But the right.
So Ralph is known for living in the basement, right? So they are a married couple. There were allegations of infidelity because Ralph went to Tampa, which, by the way, Nene Leakes and I will be in Tampa on May 14th. Get out of your basement and come see me and Nene Leakes on tour May 14th in Tampa. Ralph, you are more than welcome to join if Drew has the kids on that day. Now, with that being said, see, Courtney, I took a little.
Hopefully they're out of school because she'll have him for the summer. He'll be
Thank
free to roam.
you. Well, they said August, child. But hey, arrangements in advance always works. So, with that being said, um, he gets to leave the basement, go upstairs, and have all of the house, and she has to vacate the home, which to me was interesting because even during all of that, um, they also had to show how much they make, and she is a 5 season housewife. And in my years producing Housewives, if you're on the show for 5 seasons, you're making at least, and when I say the least, the very least,
Right.
the absolute very least you're making, okay, is 20,000 an episode.
Right.
And that's being extremely conservative,
Right.
okay?
It gets real. Right.
The court documents that they submitted, she says she's making 12,000 a month,
Hmm.
which as a producer, for me, unless you have a bad lawyer who can negotiate, I've
Hmm.
never known a 5 season housewife on a hit show make less than 20,000 an episode. That's my experience.
Right. Hmm.
So that we all were shocked by that. They're also saying that Ralph conversely makes 70,000 a month, which um shocked us because we all then said, well, damn, Rap, what do you do for a living and are you single? So the thing for a lot of people,
Why did that go through my head real quick? I was like, oh, hey, Ralph.
hey, Rap, that
Hey,
basement must be a good bachelor pad. But with
right.
that being said, um, Ralph does stuff in tech and
Got it.
the money's in tech, girls, right?
Yep.
So the thing that was interesting is she did say that due to the oldest son, so she has an older son that she
That's
had in a
not
previous
Ralph's
relationship.
previous relationship.
She told the judge that she is fearing that her and her son is going to be homeless, and she is begging him to reverse the mandate where she has to be let out, I mean, out by May 31st. And that's where she outlined that Ralph's income is three times more than hers. And she's afraid that her oldest son and she will be homeless. So the removal of the of her leaving the house to me still isn't clear. And Judge,
How's she
obviously, I
not
know you
clear?
can touch
Open
on
cases.
the
I cannot touch on this, but I have been sitting here because there is one thing that I want to clarify and just
yes,
make sure
please.
that the audience understands. Anytime there is a separation of a marriage, you have to separate the
I
assets.
said.
It's hard. It's a terrible time. But that is what the culmination of an end of a marriage results in. Again, the assets have to be split. And it's not that the judge or anyone is kicking anyone out. The judge is determining who is going to have possession.
Mm-hmm.
Those are two different things.
Right.
The judge has to give possession of certain assets in the most equitable way possible, based again on the facts that may or may not be public. And so I just want to continue to remind people that this is a legal proceeding, it's not a headline. And a judge has a really tough job when you're talking about how are we going to split up. I mean, I had a friend, she was presiding over a marriage, a divorce. And she kept telling the couple, you all have to figure out what you want to do with your dog.
Mm.
They could not, they refused to come up with an agreement. She was forced to give them a week to say goodbye, and they had to rehome the dog. But
Mm.
these are the things. Tough things happen when you don't come to the agreement yourself. Or key, what does Judge Tyranny always say? Get a prenup so that you know the rules
Right.
in advance, so that you can avoid these things where you are putting your faith in someone else. Judges can only do what they can do based on the facts of the case.
So it's Carlos, do we know if Drew had a prenup?
No, they did not.
They did not.
They they met, they got married a few months after meeting.
Mm.
And although she was an actress, listen, as Tyranny knows, being a judge, it's the same old story, right? We met, we fell in love, we got married a few months later, we were in bliss, and
And a
it,
few months is more than enough time to get a prenup, people.
Mm.
so that happened,
Carlos is like,
that happened between them, and she is here. But let me ask you this. Based on the fact that because they're in a situation where the judge has information where he or she, I don't, they didn't mention the judge, where the judge, he or she, um, feels like Drew should leave the home based on whatever circumstance that the judge felt during the proceedings that we may not be privy to publicly.
Mhm.
Um, if Drew Sidora can prove that her income isn't supplemented enough to where she and her son can find a home, does she have a case to stay in the house? at least.
In a divorce proceeding, there is going to be a separation of assets, a division of assets. The only thing anyone in a courtroom is going to do is separate those. So possession is decided.
And that is just because it's been decided doesn't mean that once the divorce is final, that they can't split the proceeds. Like they have to figure out what they're going to do with the assets. But it's just like housing right now. She has two kids. I believe their ages are what, like 10?
I have no idea what their
No, no, no.
ages.
I'm waiting for Carlos to come back on screen.
Oh, their ages. Yeah,
Are
just go
10
for a
and
second.
8.
Go ahead,
Because I
Courtney.
don't know if you're going to use this, so I'm just waiting to finish.
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, their ages are 10 and 8. So they're minor children. Uh, from what I'm gathering and what I'm hearing is she's out of the house temporarily, or she's out of the house until the divorce is final. And then will there be another separation of assets, or in the settlement, will she get something else? Or what's going to
Again,
be
I'm not
happening
aware of anything related to this case. I can't
next?
speak on that case, but I can tell you that there can be a temporary order and there can be a permanent order. And so, in a temporary order, it is basically going to be put in place until the final order. It
Okay.
may change in the final order, or it may actually just stay the same and continue.
Okay. That's good to know. So this is not necessarily just set in stone. This is right now. And let's also note $12,000 a month in Georgia, she can find a place to live. She shouldn't be homeless at $12,000 a month. It's not like she can't find other accommodations. She might just not be used to the accommodations, but you got to do what you got to do to also take care of and provide for your son, your other son, your other child. So if she's homeless, she's that's a personal choice, not necessarily that she doesn't have any money. She might
Yeah,
not
I mean,
have
12,000, you can have a cute
you can get
situation.
a cute little situation with
Yeah,
that.
I agree with that. And you know, the thing is, what is happening now, and this is the most recent information that came out today, um, literally 18 minutes ago, Courtney and Tierney, that's why we're always here for breaking news. So Drew wants Ralph thrown in jail. It just keeps getting worse. She asks a judge to put him behind bars for leaking private text messages. In the filing, Drew told the court she's been famous since age 8. That why is that
Right.
funny?
That was an involuntary laugh.
Drew's been famous since she was 8, Courtney. Do you not know this?
I literally just found out about her from Housewives, but I have seen several of her
You didn't
TV.
watch the game?
Oh, that's right. She was on there.
She was girl Melody. I'm not. She wasn't girl Melody. The girl that was
Girl,
that was Tia Mowry. No,
that
but
was,
she played Drew like she was Drew. Yeah. Anyways,
yeah.
and she was T
Okay.
Boz in the
But would you
biopic.
would you consider that famous though?
Courtney.
I, hey, that wasn't my energy coming on. I was just like, but I'm like,
And Tierney's trying so hard.
would you consider that famous
I
Yes.
know
or
that's been it,
popular?
and I'm not in it.
Listen, I think that's popular, or known,
It's
but
your
I
fault,
wouldn't
Carlos,
necessarily
because you
call.
told her to be messy today.
I did not tell her to be messy. I said she will be the messy one because I know my friend, Courtney. Um,
Just
Co-
saying. That's a very uh you're being very generous with the word famous. But okay.
Okay, well, she told the court she's been famous since 8 years old and
I
said that her
first had
career
the
had
singular
been
reaction.
and said that her career had been on the rise with a new song and several big projects. She claimed that on June 10th, 2025, Ralph gave private text messages he stole from her cell phone. I'm putting the air quotes because that's what it
Yeah.
says. Okay.
So,
Stole from her cell phone to a media outlet before the divorce was filed. She said they were posted with false narratives purposely meant to place her in a negative light. Drew said Rab also posted her text on social media. She said he was trying to embarrass and disparage her. The paperwork alleged, while it is clear and apparent that Rab has disdain for his estranged wife, such disdain does not give Rap the right to publicly humiliate Drew. Drew demanded that Ralph be fined $1,000 for every violation of the mutual restraining order in place when the divorce was filed and asked for him to be thrown in jail for up to 20 days.
well, here's what I will say. Here's what we're not saying out loud. Sounds like Drew has and what I've been starting to do is look at people's representation. And I've read up on the husband's lawyer. She is you know, bad mamma jamma. So I
Rap
would just say
lawyer is?
Ralph's lawyer, Miss Anderson, Attorney Anderson, is like top notch, top tier.
Mm.
And full
Uh,
disclosure, Precious Anderson is also my lawyer,
oh,
but I have
really?
not. Oh my
Oh,
God, did y'all do the double
oh,
She represents you?
leave? She does
oh,
in my estate planning.
oh.
How
Okay.
much she charges?
Right. Not unbeknownst to me.
Is she expensive?
She's worth every dime.
Five or six worth.
You
Well,
can't put a price on protection.
word of the day. That's Judge Tyranny, Your Honor. Yes. Okay, go
You're,
ahead, Courtney.
but that's what I'm saying. I'm like, listen, if she's managed to protect Ralph, using your words, then you got to see how this thing has played out, and it's played out in his favor. And a lot of times, the attorneys who are representing these people don't get enough credit for being exceptional at what they do. So she seemed, what I've read about her, what little I know about her, and now it makes total sense if that's your attorney, Tyranny. She seems exceptional. So, and not taking away anything from Drew's attorney, but it doesn't feel like Miss Precious Anderson is one to play with. She is winning in my DJ Khaled's voice.
Yeah. So, can you shed any legal light on this notion that is it illegal in the state of Georgia to leak text messages for the sake of embarrassment?
So remember, we talked about this before when we're talking about slander and libel.
Yes.
Mhm.
One of the key components is going to be that the statements have to be false. So you have to start with there.
Hmm.
Two, they actually have to cause damage that you can quantify, and you have to prove that they were put in public marketplace with a third party.
Mm.
So there's going to be tenets of the law that has to be proved. You have to be able to show the harm and quantify it.
So
And I think that you know that it's worth noting that if you're currently going through a divorce proceeding, the judge could possibly address it if it's already a part of the proceedings. Because remember, family law, divorces go through civil law. If a crime has happened or a law has been broken, that now brings it into the criminal hemisphere. That's
okay,
going to put it on two different tracks. Not to say that if you have a pending criminal charge, it may or may not affect your divorce proceeding or vice versa. But if it is a criminal charge per se, it is going to be in a different jurisdiction.
got it.
Mm.
And I know you can't answer this, but it feels like these are just tactics to prolong, to get things in your favor. I don't know. And I don't know that it has any real bearing on the judgment that was just rendered, for her to still vacate the house, and him still have custody of these kids.
Yep. So I think that again, we have to always remember that, like I just said, civil, criminal, two different tracks. Even if you're in a civil matter and you're talking about splitting up economics versus accusations of abuse, the judge is still going to deal with those topics separately
Separately.
because the division of assets is very separate than conduct. So the judge may deal with them one at a time or together, but there's always going to be a resolve for both issues
Separately. And in
separately.
two separate courts, correct? Could
No,
it be in the
it
same?
could possibly be with the same judge if it falls within the parameters of the divorce proceeding. But a judge can address conduct without addressing the finances and vice versa. The
Oh,
judge
that's
can
good to know.
address the finances without addressing the conduct. The judge can just say, I'm going to address this first, and then we will come back and address this.
Oh,
It's
Got
that's
it.
going to be in the
interesting.
That is
purview.
interesting.
You better cook, Tyranny. So, but that's why I love having you on this because a lot of people are questioning like the why, the why, the why, the why, the why. And the main thing that I'm learning from the University of Tyranny is the fact that there's so much information that we aren't privy to just based on the proceedings that is happening, number one. Number two, not everything is done in one big in one big finalization order. Things are
Right.
processed. So that's why it is interesting in what you just outlined, which is the judge could be saying, I'm going to deal with this first and then deal with that later, and so on and so forth, because I need to remind the raindrops Drew and Raph are still legally married.
Right.
They're not divorced.
Mhm.
And there is a restraining order that is in place, which is why, more than likely, he's in the basement, she's upstairs, and why now that he has primary physical custody. And again, I could have this all wrong, and stop me if
Right.
I do, Judge, if you're able to, because there is a restraining order that is mutual. That also could mean why she has to leave the premises due to him not having primary physical custody.
Needs to be able to roam
Could
as
that
he.
be the case, Judge?
So again, I can't speak on their
Okay.
case, but I could just tell you that again, a judge is going to take all of those things into consideration
Right.
because you have to deal with each issue as you move through the divorce proceedings.
Yeah.
You know what I love about everything that you've said and everything that you've taught, both Carlos and I and the raindrops, is it really allows us to understand the position of a judge and it not being emotional.
Mhm.
Like it really, so you've always said it's just based on the facts. It's just based on the facts. We as the audience and people who are getting this little slithers of information, we are reacting. And nine times out of 10, reacting to the emotions that we're seeing, to the
Mhm.
tears that we're seeing being shed on the screens, to the comments. I'm very trigger happy when it comes to the comments on what I agree, but it really does put into perspective the law and order of things. And the
Hmm.
order of things is, hey, there's this couple, they're on the, they're going through a divorce, there are restraining orders in place, and there are children involved.
Hmm.
And so we have, if we're solely looking at it from family law perspective, we've got to do what's going to be in the best interest of the children. The only emotions that are being taken into consideration are that of the stability and well-being and emotional state of the kids. The parents are expected to be parents, the adults are expected to be adults, and then handle the other affairs unemotionally if at all possible, and just get to the facts of the matter, that are, that are going to still be in the best interest of separating as cleanly as possible. I like that you keep reminding us, and it just clicked for me that this is not about how we feel about a thing, it's about the facts about the
Yeah,
thing.
and listen, a lot of people are basing their bias on the show. Listen, Ralph isn't painted as a good person on the show based on the power of just him and Drew. It has
Right.
nothing to do with production, the producers. It's based on the fact that the moment they got on the show, we were told that he was in Tampa doing who knows what. He has
Mhm.
denied that he was cheating. She says he did. And we have seen them having this very tumultuous marriage. And Drew Sidora has a lot of fans. I love Drew Sidora. She's a friend of mine. She's been on my podcast. I've been very encouraging to her, saying how she needs to walk away from the situation to better her life. I'm not against Ralph because of that. I have met Ralph. He was nice to me, and I only judge people based on how they interact with
Or,
me. I'm not married. I'm not in your bedroom. I don't know all the
right.
details. And so I can only base things on what I am aware of and what I see with my own eyes. Um, the thing with Ralph is, unfortunately, yeah, people are like, he, you're a nasty man for taking the kids away from her.
The
And
mom.
I get that based on just the society we live in, where mothers are heralded as being the best parent out of the bunch.
Yep.
However, the judge made a decision based on facts that he or she saw that we are privy to some, but we're not privy to all. And I think in that case, we have to respect the judge's decision. And,
And
and
I
it
Right.
think
doesn't,
that you want to always remember, like, the father can speak for himself, the mother can speak for herself.
right.
The court, when children are involved, it is our job to speak for the children.
Mhm.
Mm,
The
yeah.
children has to have a champion. What is best for the children? So I understand that headlines, emotions will charge people and drive them to want to defend certain adults or certain parties. But again, we cannot lose sight of that we have to take into consideration the well-being of children.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this respect, the truancy and keeping kids out of school for 20 plus days, that's concerning. That's concerning.
And in Georgia, truancy charges can be brought against the parents.
Mhm. It's
Explain
like
that.
that.
Explain that to us, please.
So if your child is a minor child and does not go to school, you can be charged with truancy. The social worker is going to reach out to you. The school will file charges against the parent.
And that is a real crime.
Does that crime sometimes include jail time?
It depends on the jurisdiction.
Okay.
Because
It
like
can
in,
include, you know, again, it can include a fine and or jail time depending on the jurisdiction.
because I only know about this, and Carlos, you may have experienced some of this when you're running large productions, especially in scripted. You have to, kids can only be out of school for X a number of days. And if they are out of school, then you have to legally, at least here in California, you have to have a tutor, a certified tutor,
Homeschool.
and homeschool. You have to go through so many hoops to make sure that the child is learning, and it's the same with rules and unions, and there's a lot of, this is my corporate executive, studio executive hat on, but there are a lot of variables that have to uh, be in play in order for minors to be able to even be with their parents.
But
So
the goal is
Yeah.
not to prosecute parents. The goal is to have children in school.
right.
And that doesn't mean that, oh my gosh, your kid misses 20 days and now all of a sudden, you know, you're going to jail. It's an alarm. Like sometimes children are sick. There's a thing of excused and unexcused absences.
Right.
So that may exceed it. But that means that the school is getting involved to address it because as long as the children are minor, they are required to attend school.
Mhm.
Yeah, so this is unfortunately going to be ongoing. It literally is getting messier by the moment. And look, my heart goes out to the families. Of course, Drew and Ralph and I say that, and the kids. But most importantly, the kids. You know, the kids are minors in this situation, and um this is something to where in a perfect world, yes, you would want your parents to get along for the sake of your welfare.
Yep.
Unfortunately, that does not seem to be the case right now. Before we end, I do want to read what Drew Sidora posted about what she's going through so that people, my audience are the reality fans, so they can understand exactly um how she feels about it because she did release a statement, and I want to be able to read that. Because listen, I feel like at the end of the day, when you are a mother, despite mistakes you may have made, intentionally or unintentionally, this
It's tricky too because she also
yeah,
has another child outside of that marriage. So you're separating siblings. So
yeah, yeah.
it, it's this is not great. It's not, she is not a bad mother from everything that we could see. So separations are hard. Divorces are hard, especially when you have humans, like children involved, because nobody wins. He doesn't win by not having their mother in the house. She doesn't win by not having the father in their lives. It's going to show up in one way or the other. I don't view it as a win that I had full legal and physical custody of my daughter, because there's still things like donuts and dads that he wasn't there for. So there are things and variables. And like Tyranny says, if there is a way when things are good to better prepare for when they get tricky, then that's what you should do. Ask those important questions like, what kind of parent are you? How is discipline? Like, everything needs to be discussed. You just brought up a good point, and Carlos, since we are both fur baby lovers, what happens to the animals? Like, all of those things,
Hmm.
when you're falling in love and getting involved, you just have to have the real grown-up conversations past the infatuation to just handle the business. But what did Miss Drew say?
And I just want to say, raindrops, you really have to also be patient with the court system because just think about an onion. It's just like an onion. The court proceedings are layered, and the
Mhm.
court is going to peel it back layer by layer by layer. So you're not going to get all of it at one time. That's not going to be how a court handles a case responsibly. They're going to deal with one layer at a time.
Got it.
Yeah. Very good note. She just said some details regarding my divorce have recently become public, although the process is not yet finalized. During this time, Ralph and I are committed to co-parenting and doing what's best for our children. While certain things are beyond my control, my focus remains on showing up every day as the best mother I can be. Living in the public eye comes with challenges, but I'm choosing to move forward with grace, growth, and intention. My children are my priority, and I'm committed to leading with love, peace, and positivity. There is no ill intent towards anyone, just a continued focus on healing, evolving, and becoming the best version of myself.
Hmm.
So that was mature. So, raindrops, we will update you as more information comes. Courtney, any final words?
No, this part is hard. Tierney and I are working on a new podcast called The Empty Nester, and these are going to be parent things that come up when your children go away. And we were just talking about this on what terms do you find yourself an empty nester? And so this is where my heart does break for Drew because she, unfortunately, the challenge of being a celebrity and famous, as she would
Mhm.
call herself, is that you live a lot of your life out loud and in the public's eye. So I hope it resolves and resolves well.
That was really sweet and shady at the same time.
She can't help herself. Courtney cannot help herself. She she literally cannot help herself. But that's why we love Courtney, and that's why we love Tyranny.
We
The
do love her.
raindrops. We will start doing specials when it comes to some of these crime stories. So when there's our breaking news, like what we just did today with Juice Adore and Rap Pittman, because this has been crazy since last week, and there's more information that came out, like I said, today, which is why we want to hop on. So you know where to find us to get all of the facts and Judge Tyranny's expertise.
All right.
See
See you
you,
next.
raindrops.
Yes, and where can so when does the podcast The Empty Nesters launch, Courtney, that you and Tyranny are
Gonna
doing?
launch on Mother's Day. That is our new date.
And
We're
tell them where they
launching
can
on
find
Mother's
it.
And I am going to have plenty opinions about that because that is
Day.
my first role, my most important role as a mother. And the transition has been really, really, really difficult for me. I had a hard time. I'm really just coming out of a little mini depression over it. And I felt like I went from being depressed to angry because I felt like people don't talk about this enough. Like I didn't feel really warned.
Right.
And I was
About
upset
the
about that.
children, what happens when the children leave the nest?
Go away.
Yes, you hear about people just constantly talking about how they're going to get their lives back. They're going to do this. They're going to travel. People have these positive outputs that I didn't experience. I've lived a full life with my children, and it was like one of the most unnatural things that's happened to me in life.
Right.
I didn't like it.
Mm.
I still don't like it, but I've adjusted better. And, literally, not to drag this on, Courtney called me one day and wanted to talk about something. She's like, "What are you doing? Are you busy?" I'm like, "No, I'm laying on the sofa depressed, like not doing anything because I don't know how to deal with being in this house alone without my children."
Right.
Mm.
She was
And
so shocked that I was so honest, but I was just really angry about it. Like, why didn't anybody tell me it was going to be
Right.
this hard?
And that turned into a whole waiting to excel moment because I was like, wait, finally, I can say this out loud. Because they don't teach you how to be a parent and they don't teach you how to let go.
They don't. And
mm.
how are you supposed to let go? Like we come from a culture of people, at the beginning of time, all families basically stayed in a tribe together. There were babies, there were mothers, fathers, and elders. Those were your roles. Now there's this statistic that say you see your kid less than 30 times in life after they turn 18. That
Yeah.
pisses me off. Like I really, I don't want to get on the soapbox today, but I am really
No, that's why we're
angry
gonna
about
subscribe to your
this.
podcast so that
Right.
yes,
So
yes, this is
raindrops. You will see a very opinionated tyranny about this because I have a lot of opinions
A lot.
about empty nesting.
Yeah.
so Courtney, where can they find you in this podcast and support it?
It's gonna launch on YouTube and then Audible. We're in still talks right now of who's gonna have the audio versions of it, but wherever people find their podcast, Tyranny and I will be on talking shop about empty nesting, and the tools that help you navigate being on your own and remembering you.
And this is not just a gender thing. There,
No.
I know men who are equally struggling.
Married couples who are going through it. My sister and brother-in-law going through it as their firstborn leaves the nest. Yeah.
Yeah, well, listen, this is why I'm glad you guys have been doing this because the beauty of this is one of its kind. So
Yeah.
congratulations on this, and I really can't wait to listen to it. So Raindrops, once it's official, please follow my Instagram page too for updates because I'll be making sure the links in my bio for the girls.
Thank
Yes, yes.
you.
Thank you, Carlos, for giving us a year. People don't realize, and I said this at the first one, and I'm going to say it at this one, and I know we'll be doing some pop-ups here and now, but
Yes.
raindrops. Please support anything this man does because Carlos King has allowed his platform, has given opportunities, jobs, just advice and friendship to countless people, including myself, including Tyranny. You're a champion for not only women, but for people in this very, 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 very difficult industry. And so just kudos to you for always being honest, always being transparent, always leveraging your celebrity and your brand, and your brain. 'Cause you're brilliant.
And
Oh,
telling our stories, no matter what the story is,
What the
because
story
that is
is.
a rarity. You know, we are colorful people who are not given the opportunity as often for our stories to be told. And so, yes, definitely kudos to you. I think we should have a raindrop party in Tampa.
yeah, listen, and obviously, you're more than welcome to come to any date that we have. But no, Courtney and Tierney, thank you guys so much. This has been a great time for me as well. I've learned a lot. Courtney's in law school and she's 2 years ahead of me because I'm definitely looking into that myself because I am in love with all of the legalities of the stuff we talk about. So I love you too. Thank you so much. And listen, Courtney Parker called me a celebrity. So like that makes me happy.
You're a celebrity.
Yes.
Call you famous, but
Yeah.
You're
are
more famous than
definitely
most
you're
housewives, I think.
you are. I wouldn't have, listen, on a high note, I wouldn't have reacted the way that I reacted had Carlos said, well, I'm famous. I would have no. And and Drew, if you're watching, that was not shade, that was surprise. But
I
yes,
am done. I'm done. I love you guys so much. Have a
Love
good
you.
weekend, ladies, and I'll see
Have a
y'all.
good one.
Bye, bye,
Mwah.
bye.
girls.